Flynn had learned 3 important things during his first semester at Galactic University. 1. The cafeteria's idea of Earth-style food was a crime against humanity. 2. Nobody could pronounce his last name, so he'd stopped trying. And 3. He was apparently the only human who'd ever bothered to enroll in advanced apex predator studies. Professor Krell, a 7-foot-tall reptilian whose scales shimmered like an oil slick, strutted to the front of the lecture hall with the confidence of someone who'd never been contradicted. He tapped the holographic display, and a list materialized in the air. 127 species, all documented, catalogued, and ranked by lethality. Flynn scanned the list. Venomous Kresh, armored thoraxians, telepathic mind weavers, not a single human in sight. He pulled out his datapad and scrolled to the bottom of the syllabus. In the notes section, he typed 128. Humans. Krell noticed immediately. Of course he did. The professor's eye ridges rose in what Flynn had learned to recognize as the alien equivalent of amused condescension. "Mr. Flynn," Krell said, his voice dripping with that special academic smugness. "This is a course about actual apex predators, not adorable persistence hunters who chase antelope until they fall over." The class chittered. Apparently, cross-species mockery was universal. Flynn smiled and said nothing. Yet, Krell activated the main display, and a 3-dimensional rendering of a creature that looked like a scorpion had angry relations with a tiger materialized above his desk. Let us begin with the fundamentals. The Kresh Dominion produces neurotoxic venom capable of paralyzing prey 30 times their body mass. Retractable claws. Compound eyes with thermal detection. Bite force of 12,000 pounds per square inch. Humans have persistence hunting, Flynn said helpfully. Krell's inner eyelid flickered. "Yes, we're all very impressed that you can jog." The class chittered again. Flynn was becoming the entertainment. The professor swiped to the next species. A hulking, armored thing that looked like evolution had given up halfway through and just added more spikes. The Thoraxian Crushers, exoskeleton capable of withstanding direct plasma fire, redundant organ systems, can survive in vacuum for up to 6 hours. Strength-to-weight ratio of 40-1. Humans invented guns, Flynn mentioned. Tool use is not the same as biological superiority, Mr. Flynn. Krell's tail whipped in agitation. A wrench does not make you a predator. Right. Just saying, biological advantages are cute and all, but we skipped that whole evolution arms race thing and went straight to actual arms. One of the students, a creature that resembled a mantis wearing too much jewelry, leaned toward Flynn. "You're going to get yourself dissected for extra credit," it whispered. "Worth it," Flynn whispered back. Krell pulled up another image. This one was harder to look at directly. It seemed to shift and blur at the edges, like reality couldn't quite decide what shape it wanted to be. The Mind Weavers, telepathic apex predators. They can sense fear, anticipate movement, and psychically coordinate pack hunts across distances of up to 50 kilometers. Prey species describe the experience as being hunted by their own thoughts. "Spooky," Flynn admitted. "Humans have warfare." That got Krell's attention. Warfare is not predation. Isn't it, though? Organized group hunting, strategic planning, using terrain advantages, psychological manipulation, setting traps. Humans have been doing coordinated pack tactics since before we discovered fire. Actually, scratch that. We used fire as a pack tactic. Nothing says apex predator like herding your prey with controlled burns. The mantis student's antennae perked up. "Wait, you weaponized combustion before developing agriculture?" "We weaponized rocks before we developed language," Flynn said. "Priorities." Krell's scales had shifted to a darker shade, which Flynn had learned meant irritation. The professor clearly hadn't expected his control subject to have opinions. "Mr. Flynn, You seem to be under the misapprehension that humanity belongs in this course as anything other than an interesting footnote in the evolutionary dead ends that got lucky chapter. Oh, is that a chapter? I must have missed it between species that went extinct because they couldn't adapt and species that went extinct because humans showed up. The lecture hall went very quiet. Krell's eyes narrowed to slits. Perhaps a practical demonstration is in order. Class, I think it would be educational to examine what a non-apex predator looks like when faced with actual predatory pressure. He smiled, showing way too many teeth. Mr. Flynn, how would you feel about participating in a small simulation? Flynn leaned back in his chair. Every instinct that had kept humanity alive for 200,000 years was telling him this was a bad idea. He grinned. Professor, I thought you'd never ask. The simulation chamber materialized around Flynn like reality had been replaced with someone's idea of a nightmare jungle. Bioluminescent plants that definitely wanted to eat him. Gravity that felt just slightly wrong. Air that tasted like copper and ozone. Krell's voice boomed from everywhere and nowhere. The parameters are simple, Mr. Flynn. You are prey. The simulation contains a Vraken hunter, a mid-tier predator. Your objective is to survive for 10 minutes using only what you can find in the environment. Please, try to make this educational for the class. Through the transparent observation wall, Flynn could see the other students settling in with what he was pretty sure was popcorn. Or the alien equivalent, little chitinous kernels that screamed when you bit them. He'd tried it once. Never again. Any questions before we begin? Krell asked, with the tone of someone who hoped there wouldn't be. Just one, Flynn said, scanning the environment. When you say mid-tier, predator, what's that in Earth terms? Roughly equivalent to your Siberian tiger, but faster, and venomous, and capable of limited camouflage. So like a tiger that went to university. Got it. The simulation started before Krell could respond. Flynn immediately dropped into a crouch and went still. Not frozen in fear, still. Predator waiting for information, still. There was a difference, and every human who'd ever watched a nature documentary knew it instinctively. The Vraken materialized about 50 meters away. 6 legs. Sleek body covered in color-shifting plates. Eyes that tracked movement with the kind of focus that said this thing had never missed a meal in its life. It spotted Flynn instantly. Here's where the professor expected him to run. To trigger that age-old prey response and go crashing through the undergrowth while the predator's instincts kicked in and the chase began. Flynn didn't run. Instead, he picked up a rock. The Mantis student leaned forward. What is he doing? Flynn tested the weight of the rock. About 2 pounds. Good aerodynamics. Decent throwing stone. He pocketed it and grabbed 2 more. The Vraken circled, confused. Prey didn't collect things. Prey ran. Flynn snapped a branch off a nearby tree, the kind with the thorny bits, and started stripping it down to a point. His hands moved with the kind of casual efficiency that came from a species that had been making sharp things out of not sharp things for millennia. Is he making a spear? That was Grax, the massive carnivore in the 3rd row. Why is the prey making a spear? Krell leaned closer to the observation window. Mr. Flynn, the simulation has begun. You're supposed to be evading. Oh, I know, Flynn called back, not looking up from his work. Just getting ready. Ready for what? Flynn smiled. To hunt. The Vraken lunged. Flynn was already moving, not away but laterally, throwing the first rock in a practiced motion that would have made his baseball playing ancestors proud. It caught the Vraken in the eye cluster. The creature shrieked and stumbled. Flynn used the opening to vault over a log, putting obstacles between himself and the predator, but he wasn't running away. He was positioning, creating distance, controlling the engagement. The Vraken recovered and charged again, faster this time, angry now. Flynn let it get close. Closer. The students were shouting warnings. Then he dodged at the last possible second and drove the makeshift spear into the creature's flank as it passed. Not deep enough to kill. Deep enough to injure. Deep enough to make it slower. "What the hell is he doing?" someone whispered. The mantis student's antennae were vibrating. "I think he's wounded it on purpose. He's making it easier to track." The Fracken was bleeding now, limping, its camouflage flickering erratically. It tried to retreat into the undergrowth to hide and heal. Flynn followed. No, Krell muttered. "The prey doesn't pursue. That's not how this works." But Flynn was pursuing, tracking the blood trail, moving with patience that felt wrong for something that was supposed to be running for its life. He'd switched from being hunted to hunting, and he'd done it so smoothly that half the class hadn't noticed the transition. The Fracken tried to ambush him from above, dropping from a tree branch. Flynn had already thrown the second rock. It hit mid-leap. The creature crashed to the ground, disoriented. Flynn stood over it, makeshift spear ready. "Simulation pause?" Krell's voice cracked slightly. The jungle froze. The Vraken disappeared. Flynn looked up at the observation window, still holding his weapons. Did I win, or was there a time limit I missed? Every single student was staring at him. Grax had moved 3 seats farther away. Krell's scales had gone completely gray. "Mr. Flynn, please exit the simulation chamber. We need to have a discussion about what exactly humanity considers normal behavior." Flynn stepped out of the simulation chamber to a lecture hall that had gone completely silent. The kind of silence that happened when everyone was re-evaluating their life choices simultaneously. Krell was gripping his podium hard enough that the metal was starting to dent. That was an aberration, a statistical anomaly. You got lucky with environmental factors, and the Fracken's attack pattern happened to— "I tracked it," Flynn interrupted, setting down his rocks. He'd kept them. Waste not, want not. That wasn't luck. That was Tuesday. "Humans are tool users," Krell insisted, his voice rising. "Tool use is not the same as being an apex predator. By your logic, a Benton mechanic with a plasma wrench is a predator. Can a Benton mechanic run for 8 hours straight in the midday heat until their prey literally dies of exhaustion?" Flynn asked pleasantly. The Mantis student's translator made a sound like a corrupted file. "I'm sorry, what?" "Persistence hunting," Flynn explained, leaning against the desk. "Humans aren't fast. We're not particularly strong. We don't have venom or claws or acid spit, but we have sweat glands and endurance and the ability to track prey over distances that would kill most predators from exhaustion alone. We can literally jog an antelope to death. The antelope is faster, way faster, but it has to stop. It has to rest. It has to cool down. Humans don't. We just keep coming, and coming, and coming, for hours, for days if we have to." Grax's translator was struggling. "That sounds like a horror movie." "It gets better," Flynn said, warming to his topic. "We do it in packs. Coordinated pack tactics. Communication across vast distances. Strategic planning. We don't just hunt. We conduct military operations against prey that never stood a chance once we decided we wanted them dead." Krell's tail was doing that agitated whipping thing again. "Pack tactics are common among predators. Wolves hunt in packs. Razorfins hunt in packs. This is not unique to— Do wolves hold grudges?" Flynn asked. The professor stopped mid-sentence. "Because humans do," Flynn continued, "we have revenge as a survival trait. You know what happens when a bear attacks a human settlement? We hunt that specific bear, not just any bear. That bear. We track it for weeks, months, years sometimes. We make it personal. We tell stories about it. We name it. And then we mount its head on a wall as a warning to the next bear considering whether humans are easy prey." The lecture hall had gotten very cold. One of the smaller students, something that looked like a ferret made of crystals, raised a trembling paw. But humans are from a peaceful world, right? Mr. Flynn mentioned Earth has nature preserves and conservation. Oh, Earth's a death world, Flynn said cheerfully. Gravity's high enough to crush most species. Weather patterns that can kill you in minutes. Predators that evolve specifically to hunt the most dangerous prey on the planet. Which was us, by the way. We climbed to the top of the food chain while being hunted by things with actual claws and actual venom and actual armor. Grax leaned forward despite himself. What happened to them? The things that hunted you? Flynn's smile didn't reach his eyes. We killed most of them. The ones we didn't kill, we domesticated. Wolves became dogs. We took apex predators and turned them into pets that sleep on our beds and beg for treats. The really dangerous ones, the ones we couldn't domesticate, we keep them in zoos, behind bars, so our children can look at them and learn what we used to be afraid of. That's horrifying, the Mantis student whispered. That's efficient, Flynn corrected. And before you ask, yes, we've caused extinctions. Lots of them, sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident because we just wanted the land they were standing on. We're cooperative apex predators with pattern recognition and long-term planning and the ability to hold grudges across generations. We invented agriculture so we wouldn't have to hunt, and you know what we did with all that free time? We invented warfare. Krell had gone completely still, which Flynn had learned was the reptilian equivalent of prey-freeze response. Warfare is industrialized predation, Flynn said flatly. We got so good at killing things that we started optimizing the process, strategy, tactics, logistics. We created weapons specifically designed to kill other humans more efficiently. Spears, bows, guns, bombs. We looked at the atom, the fundamental building block of reality, and thought, I bet we could split that and make it explode. You weaponized nuclear fission? The crystal ferret's voice had gone up 3 octaves. We weaponized nuclear fission twice, on purpose, to end a war, and it worked. The class was dead silent again. Grax spoke carefully, like someone trying not to startle a dangerous animal. Mr. Flynn, what hunts humans on your world, currently? Flynn thought about it. Mosquitoes kill the most humans annually, about 700,000 people. But we're working on making them extinct too, so check back in a decade. And larger predators? Oh, those. Flynn shrugged. We killed them. Tigers, lions, bears, sharks. They occasionally get lucky, but mostly they've learned to stay away from human settlements. The ones that don't learn end up as rugs, or trophies, or viral videos with surprisingly cheerful music. Krell's voice was very quiet. And humans are considered one of the more peaceful species in your stellar region. We try to be, Flynn agreed. Turns out when you're this good at killing things, you have to actively choose not to. It's a whole thing. We have philosophies about it, ethics, laws. We invented the concept of war crimes because we had to draw a line somewhere between acceptable killing and, okay, that's too far even for us. The Mantis student was making a list on its datapad with shaking appendages. So humans have persistence hunting, pack tactics, tool creation, strategic planning, revenge motivation, domestication of predators, environmental adaptation, and industrialized warfare. Don't forget space travel, Flynn added helpfully. We made it to space out of spite. Just wanted to prove we could. The moon landing was basically humans going. Bet you we can walk on that thing, and then we did it and planted a flag. No resources up there, no strategic value at the time. Just wanted to say we'd been there. Krell slowly, very slowly, pulled up the course syllabus on his display. He scrolled to the bottom. With one claw, he typed 128. Humans, persistence. Apex predator, tool user class, threat level, recalculating. There, he said quietly. Are you satisfied, Mr. Flynn? Flynn grinned. I mean, you could bump us up a few spots in the rankings, but it's a start. Grax was gathering his materials. I'm transferring to advanced herbivore studies. Anyone want to join me? 3 other students raised their appendages. Krell was gripping the podium so hard it was starting to crack. His scales had cycled through about 6 different stress colors in the last 30 seconds. Fine, fine. You've made your point, Mr. Flynn. Humans are surprisingly resilient for a species that looks like it would lose a fight with a strong breeze. But resilience is not the same as being an apex predator. You want on this list? Prove it. Give me one reason, one concrete reason, why humanity deserves to be ranked alongside species that have spent millions of years evolving natural weapons. Flynn stood up. The movement was casual, unhurried, but every predator in the room tracked it with the kind of focus usually reserved for spotting threats. He walked to the front of the class, hands in his pockets, looking for all the world like someone about to explain why the cafeteria was out of his favorite sandwich. You want one reason? Flynn asked. How about this? We don't have venom, so we made venom. We don't have claws, so we made claws. We don't have armor, so we made armor. We don't have wings, so we made wings. We looked at every single advantage that nature gave to other species, and we said, that's cute, we'll take 2 and make them better. The mantis students' antennae were fully extended. That's still just tool use. No, Flynn interrupted, his voice still friendly, but with an edge that made several students flinch. Tool use is a chimpanzee with a stick. What humans do is engineering. We don't just use tools, we create them from first principles. We see a problem and we solve it. Can't run fast enough? Invent the wheel, can't fly. Invent the airplane, can't breathe underwater. Invent scuba gear, can't survive in space. Build a spaceship? We don't adapt to our environment, we make the environment adapt to US. Krell's tail had stopped moving. And you want to know the really terrifying part? Flynn continued, warming up now. We did all of this on a Deathworld. Earth isn't some peaceful garden planet. It's a nightmare sphere with weather patterns that can kill you in minutes, tectonic activity that can level cities, and more ways to die than we've bothered to count. We have hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, droughts, floods, blizzards, and heat waves. Our planet is actively trying to kill us on a regular basis. The crystal ferret made a sound like wind chimes in a garbage disposal. Why would you stay there? Because we're stubborn, Flynn said. Humans don't run from challenges. We get offended by them. Earth threw everything it had at us, and we said, is that all you've got? And then we thrived. We spread to every continent, every climate zone, deserts where the sand hits 200 degrees, tundras where the air freezes your lungs, mountains where there's barely enough oxygen to think. We went to all of these places, and we lived there. Not survived. Lived, built cities, raised families, created ART. Grax was taking notes now, which seemed like a bad sign for everyone involved. What about natural predators? Earth must have had some. Oh, it had plenty, Flynn said. We shared the planet with things that make your Vraken hunter look like a house cat. Ever heard of a polar bear? 3 meters tall, can smell prey from 30 kilometers away. Bite force strong enough to crush a bowling ball. We hunted them, for their fur, because it was cold and we wanted to be warm. That seems excessive, the mantis student whispered. You think that's excessive? We hunted whales. Whales. The largest animals on our planet. We got in tiny wooden boats and went out on an ocean that could swallow us whole, found animals the size of buildings, and stabbed them with pointy sticks until they died. For lamp oil. We nearly drove them extinct because we wanted better lighting. The lecture hall had the energy of a group therapy session where everyone was just realizing they'd been living next to a serial killer. Flynn leaned against Krell's desk. And here's the thing none of you are getting. We made it to space not because we had to, not for resources or survival or territorial expansion. We did it because we looked up at the stars and said, I wonder what's up there. And then we went there. Out of curiosity, out of spite. Because people said it was impossible, and humans have never met an impossible we didn't take as a personal challenge. The moon landing, Krell said quietly, like he was testing the words. We went to our moon with computers less powerful than the datapad I'm carrying right now, Flynn confirmed, in metal cans held together with rivets and prayers through the hard vacuum of space, and we didn't do it once. We did it 6 times. Because we could. Because we wanted to. Because someone said, bet you can't walk on the moon, and we said, hold my beer. Grax raised a claw slowly. Mr. Flynn, I have a question, and I need you to answer honestly. Shoot. What currently hunts? Humans on your homeworld. What keeps your population in check? Flynn thought about it for a long moment. Each other, mostly. The silence that followed could have suffocated a star. We're a cooperative apex predator species, Flynn continued. The only thing on Earth dangerous enough to hunt humans effectively is other humans. We compete with ourselves. We're our own selection pressure. Every piece of technology, every weapon, every strategy we've ever developed was made to be better than what another human had. We've been in an arms race with ourselves for 10,000 years. The crystal ferret's voice was very small. That's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. It gets weirder, Flynn said, because we're also the only apex predator species that actively chooses not to be as dangerous as we could be. We have ethics, morality, laws, rules of engagement. We invented the concept of proportional response. We could glass a planet from orbit, but we don't. Because we decided. That's not okay. We have the capacity for extinction-level violence, and we just don't use it most of the time. We choose to be peaceful. Krell was staring at Flynn like he was seeing him for the first time. You're saying the most dangerous thing about humans is that they're holding back. Constantly, Flynn agreed. Every single day, every human you meet is actively choosing not to be a threat. We're a species of cooperative apex predators with pattern recognition, tool creation, long-term planning, and revenge motivation, and we've decided that on the whole, we'd rather build things than destroy them. We've got 10,000 years of warfare in our history, and we're trying to do better. That's the human condition, being terrifyingly capable of violence and consciously choosing peace. He looked around the lecture hall. So yeah, Professor Krell, I think we belong on your list. Not at the bottom. We belong wherever you put the species that scared themselves into developing ethics. The lecture hall was so quiet, you could hear the air recyclers. Grax stood up, gathered his materials, and moved to a desk on the opposite side of the room, as far from Flynn as physically possible while still being in the same class. 3 other students joined him. Krell looked at his syllabus, then at Flynn, then back at the syllabus. His claws hovered over the display. Threat level. Recalculating, he read aloud. Then he changed it. Threat level. Exponential. Do not provoke. Flynn grinned. That's more like it. Krell updated the official course registry with the kind of resignation usually reserved for people updating their insurance after a house fire. The holographic display now read 128, humans, persistence, apex predator, tool user class, cooperative pack hunter, threat level, exponential, do not provoke, do not underestimate, do not assume harmless based on appearance. Flynn returned to his seat with the satisfied smile of someone who just won an argument they'd been saving up for months. Grax was now sitting in the back corner, as far from Flynn as the lecture hall allowed. 2 other students had joined him. They were taking notes on Flynn's position and seemed to be calculating safe distance ratios. The Mantis student leaned over. So, are all humans like you? Like me? Flynn asked innocently. Oh no, I'm actually on the friendlier end of the spectrum. I smile a lot. Makes people comfortable. The Mantis moved 1 seat to the left. Krell cleared his throat, which sounded like gravel in a blender. Well, that was educational. Traumatizing, but educational. I trust we've all learned something today about making assumptions based on incomplete data. His scales were still doing stress collars. Next week's topic will be prey species self-defense mechanisms, how non-predators survive in hostile environments. Flynn's hand shot up. No, Krell said immediately. I didn't even ask yet. You are going to volunteer as a teaching assistant. I mean, I do have extensive experience with prey behavior. Absolutely not. Krell's tail whipped sharply. You will sit quietly next week and you will not demonstrate anything. Are we clear? Crystal, Flynn said, grinning. Krell began packing up his materials with the careful movements of someone whose entire world-view had been shattered in the last hour. Class dismissed. Please exit in an orderly fashion, and someone check on the students who fainted. As the lecture hall emptied, the crystal ferret approached, Flynn cautiously, like someone approaching a sleeping bear. Mr. Flynn, I have to ask, if humans are this dangerous, why did you come to Galactic University? Why leave your planet at all? Flynn considered the question. Same reason we went to the moon, I guess. Wanted to see what was out there. Meet new people, learn new things, maybe make some friends. After that lecture, you think anyone's going to want to be your friend? Flynn looked genuinely surprised. Why not? I'm adorable. The ferret stared at him. That's what Professor Krell said, adorable persistence hunter. I'm thinking of putting it on a shirt. Grax passed by, giving Flynn a wide berth. You're insane. Your entire species is insane. We prefer ambitious, Flynn called after him. It's all about branding. Krell was still at the podium, staring at the updated course roster like it personally offended him. Flynn walked over, hands in pockets. Professor, no hard feelings, right? Krell's inner eyelid flickered. Mr. Flynn, in my 40 years of teaching, I have never had a student who so thoroughly destroyed my curriculum in a single lecture. So that's a yes to hard feelings. That's a yes to me requiring strong sedatives and a complete reassessment of my understanding of galactic threat distribution. Krell looked at him. Out of curiosity, how many other humans are planning to enroll in Galactic University? Oh, tons probably. The exchange program's getting pretty popular. I think there's 50 more coming next semester. Krell's scales went pale gray. 50. Yeah, we're very social. Love learning. Insatiable curiosity. You know how it is. I'm putting in a request for hazard pay, Krell muttered. Flynn patted the desk companionably. Look on the bright side, Professor. At least now your course has the most accurate apex predator list in the galaxy. That is not the bright side I was looking for. Could be worse. Could have let us stay off the list and found out the hard way. Krell was quiet for a moment. Then, reluctantly, that is a fair point. Flynn headed for the door, then paused and looked back. Hey, Professor. Thanks for adding us to the list. Seriously, recognition matters. Get out of my lecture hall, Mr. Flynn. See you next week. I'm dreading it already. Flynn left whistling, already planning what he'd bring up during the prey species defense lecture. Maybe something about how humans had domesticated literally hundreds of species, or how they'd invented biological warfare, or how they'd created artificial intelligence just to see if they could. Behind him, Krell pulled up a research database and began a new search. Human behavioral patterns, threat assessment, survival protocols. The results were 3,000 pages long. Adorable, Krell muttered to himself, reading through case studies of human persistence hunting, strategic planning, and creative problem-solving. He called his species adorable. The truly terrifying part was that Flynn had probably meant it.